In spite of 2020's, let's call them issues, Apple has had an incredible year. All the iPads except for some reason, the Mini got updated. We got 5 new iPhones, iPad Pros got Magic Keyboards, SE watches, Apple Silicon and more. But that's all in the past and the subject of another video. Subscribe and ring the bell so you don't miss it. But what does 2021 look like for Apple? Bearing in mind that things aren't back to normal just yet, but we have a vaccine coloured light at the end of the tunnel. In this video, we'll break down the products that we're expecting to see from Apple in the next 12 months based on what's come before, rumoured updates, and just a dash of optimism. Because we need some more optimism right now.
For the latest Apple news, rumors, and leaks, every weekday at 12 UTC, join us in the iCave.
And just to be clear, in this video, we're going to address everything from the iPhone, iPad, Apple Watch, audio stuff, but we're not going into Macs, Apple TV and stuff like that, just because this video would be an absolute marathon if we did. So we will be doing a part 2, which is going to contain all of that good stuff. But if you like this kind of video, then please smash the like button 2021 style, and let me know if there's any of the products mentioned here that you want me to go into in more detail in a future video. So let's start off with the easiest stuff. What will 2021's iPhone lineup look like? iPhone 13 or possibly 12s if Apple decides to pander to the superstitious will almost certainly keep the current form factors with its sharp flat sides, with an aluminium chassis in the regular consumer iPhone models for the iPhone and iPhone Mini, and the stainless steel for the Pro models. And of course, we'll almost certainly be seeing Apple introduce their A15 SOC in these. In terms of performance, Geekbench single core, we've seen 719 in A11, 1112 in A12, A13 up to 1328, and A14 up to 1585. So conservatively, we could expect an increase of 200 to 250 points, putting the score most likely somewhere close to 1800. Multi-core scores have also increased generation by generation, with the same SoCs giving 2099, 2478, 3318 and 3950, so I'd be surprised if the multi-core score drops below 4500 for this chip. So unsurprisingly, these will be the most powerful and fastest iPhones ever. They are every year, of course, but Apple will still tell us how it's the best iPhone we've ever made. I mean, it had better be, Tim. We'll see the same display sizes, 5.4 inch for the iPhone Mini, 6.1 inch iPhone and iPhone Pro, and 6.7 inch iPhone Pro Max, but these Pro displays should finally have that sweet Pro motion that the world was so devastated it was missing in 2020 that the iPhone 12 became the fastest selling phone in years. Look, I'm being slightly facetious here. I know that a lot of people watching this probably do really care about the 120Hz refresh rates and the Pro motion where it can change from one refresh rate to another. Remember that by simply watching a video predicting what Apple might do next, you are in the 1% of iPhone users. Most people just want a great iPhone that works. I do think that people will come to love them when they have them in their hands, and they'll wonder why old iPhones suddenly feel like trash. Is that a good thing? But in all seriousness, 120Hz refresh rate is not something you notice until you go back to 60Hz. It's just one of those things that it makes everything a little bit nicer. But for me, I'm not sure that the extra pressure onto the system on a chip is worth it for the extra frames to be driven out to make it a little bit smoother when we're trying to generate twice as many frames to do the same task. Other rumours include new iPhones getting Wi-Fi 6E, using 6 GHz bands as well as 2.4 and 5 GHz, reducing congestion and potentially offering 1.2 gigabits speed, around what the rarefied millimeter wave 5G can offer. Other than that, maybe Apple can bring the larger sensor from the iPhone Pro Max into some of the smaller form factors, maybe even sensor shift stabilization. One underrated feature right now is the LiDAR in iPhone 12 Pro and Pro Max, which honestly has made the focus on mine, which I'm shooting on right now, absolutely rock solid, and I would love to see that come to the whole range, maybe to support that portrait mode video that I thought we would be getting earlier this year. Every year we see Apple show better and better photography with that beautiful simulated bokeh background, and I would absolutely love it for vloggers to be able to use their iPhones and get just as good bokehs on full motion video. That would look amazing. We've also heard rumours of the Lightning port going away for Apple to make MagSafe their full-time charging method, and I think it could happen. I've exclusively charged via MagSafe with my iPhone 12 Pro Max, and it has been awesome. Finally, I'm sure we will get a new selection of colour options, and maybe, just maybe, Apple will allow contrasting bands of colour on the sides versus the back glass panel. I would love to see a yellow band with graphite black combination. What would you choose if you could mix and match your iPhone colours? iPhone SE. We've had a number of rumours in the past of an iPhone SE Max, either taking the iPhone 8 Plus chassis and adding modern internals, or a larger all-screen design but deleting Face ID and adding a Touch ID sleep wake button. But then what happens to the notch? Do you shrink it down to a hole punch? Do you keep it that size for the speaker, front camera, and then just leave the rest of it empty? Neither seems like a particularly Apple thing to do, so if they were to do a larger SE phone, I would expect it to have the home button Touch ID sensor, but in all honesty, I don't actually expect this phone to emerge in 2021. The current SE is still very capable and is designed to fill a role of giving a low-cost entry point into the iPhone ecosystem. Extended iPhone range. The iPhone XR is most likely to be removed from Apple's range, as it is the only one powered by the A12 chip, which it seems is being phased out across the board in 2021. iPhone 11 and SE are likely to become the base budget options powered by A13. iPhone 12, yes, the vanilla, nothing after the name 6.1-inch variety, likely hanging around just under the pricing of the incoming iPhone 13 mini, but only assuming that Apple is able to slot in their own 5G modem. If they had to continue using Qualcomm units, it would almost certainly cost more to produce the iPhone 12 than the new iPhone 13 models. This just demonstrates what the power of Apple bringing more and more of their design and production in-house rather than using off-the-shelf parts can make. And just for context, the reason I think this is because Apple bought Intel's smartphone modem business back in 2017, and so far we haven't seen any of those devices come out. So in our next section, talking about iPad, we will be touching on this a little bit more. With Apple's iPad lineup in 2021, I think that following the introduction of Apple Silicon, Apple will be aiming to update models across the board every year from now on, even though we've seen 18-month refreshers in the iPad Pro lineup in the past. So, first up, iPad Pro. iPad Pro is expected to be refreshed early in 2021, most likely in March or April, but I would guess March, most likely. Right now, the A14 powered iPad Air is really not far away from the performance of the current iPads Pro in several areas, if with a few missing features like ProMotion and Face ID. Because Apple will be making far more use of their fab processing at TSMC, who I 100% think Apple should acquire, I do think that they'll begin to make AX series chips every single year, in line with their iPhone A series and Mac M series chips. In fact, the M1 fits almost exactly with the numbers that YouTuber Luke Miani, who you should definitely check out, predicted for Apple's A14X, which was assumed to be the powerhouse behind the first Apple Silicon Macs at the time. As a result, I think the M1 and A14X may well share the same die, but perhaps with certain parts repurposed or even left dormant in the different product lines. While leaving parts of the silicon idle might seem really wasteful, it would actually be most likely more efficient than fabricating multiple SoC designs, and maybe another place that we see Apple taking advantage of chip binning. Where the base MacBook Airs get a 7-core GPU rather than an 8, this is not because of a different chip design, but because certain cores may not be working. So where there's a single core non-functional, that could be used for those devices. In the same way, Apple could, if the demands of the system are lower for multitasking, for example with the iPad Pros versus the M1s, some of the M1 SoCs with 7 compute cores could potentially be used in iPad Pro in future, perhaps, again making more efficiency gains with their fabrication processes. Or maybe they're just waiting for the production to ramp up enough to bring the full performance chips to iPad Pro. The iPad Pro also looks to be one of the first products that Apple brings its mini-LED displays to, most likely in 2021. Though there have been suggestions of iPad Pros using OLED, mini-LED brings the benefits of extreme contrast with blacker blacks, but without the drawbacks of OLED like screen burn-in and uneven brightness across larger displays, for example. I'm also expecting Apple to introduce their own 5G modems for the first time in the new iPad Pro refresh, and I call it a refresh because I don't expect to see any major design changes. will keep the 12.9-inch and 11-inch form factors, and Apple Pencil will continue to lead the industry. But back to the 5G modems, why should you care about Apple making their own? Well, I mean, design their own. TSMC will do the making on their behalf, most likely, as they have been doing in the past, with their working relationship blossoming like never before. And the latest reports say that Apple has even bought the entirety of TSMC's initial capacity for their 3nm process as soon as it's available. So Apple's own designed 5G modems will benefit the line in a few different ways. First of all, just like with Apple creating their own SoCs, the modems can be perfectly tuned for the hardware and the aerials that it will be working with. That should give better signal strength and better speeds than a generic modem being designed to work as well as possible with any of an array of different aerial designs and hardware chassis casings. Second, the cost should be far lower, as it's been reported that up to $150 of the cost materials in each iPhone 12 and 12 Pro could be directly attributed to the Qualcomm 5G modems, which is insanely high as a proportion of the overall device. Finally, Apple may well be able to better optimize power management for these 5G modems in the iPad range and use these learnings to bring their own modems to the iPhone range, and more later in the year, all being well. Base iPad SE? We're also hearing fairly realistic sounding rumours of a 9th generation iPad being introduced in spring of 2021, which would also place it in that March to April window. Not the full design overhaul that the iPad Air just got, but it may be inheriting a number of iPad Air 3's cast-offs. So we're talking about a slimmer build, 10.2-inch screen growing up to 10.5 inches, and also potentially getting a processor upgrade again, having just been updated in September to A12, moving right up to the A13, which we've never seen in any iPad. Strange that. I always wondered why we didn't get an A13X based iPad Pro, but I guess Apple Silicon team were a bit busy preparing for, well, Apple Silicon for Macs. One more advantage of picking up the iPad Air's old display is that this was a laminated display, meaning that the LCD is fused to the digitizer layer, meaning it feels a lot more like you're touching your content. Whereas Apple's budget lineup has always in the past had two separate components with a small air gap in between the cover glass and the LCD. While this has never bothered me in the past, there are a lot of people who absolutely hate this, and I will admit, since picking up the iPad Air 4, I do think that the fused display is really great. It does, however, make a much more expensive repair if you have a break, because you'll be replacing the LCD as well as the digitizer too. And as it's the cheapest of Apple's iPad lineup, it's also the most likely to be thrown in the direction of a child to silence them. Of course, I mean through distraction. And it seems that Apple may be looking to lower the price even further too, right down to $299, which is a 10% drop, and what they currently cost for education users. This price drop is also the reason that they could pick up the SE tag. iPad SE better explains, I think, where they should sit in the product line. iPad Mini. The most neglected of Apple's iPad range, not just once, is the iPad Mini. Originally introduced with the A5 powered internals from iPad 2, but using Lightning instead of 30-pin dock connector, and also with the slimmer bezels on the sides that would later come to the iPad Air, the Mini got some really lackluster updates in the past, like just adding Touch ID for one revision, and when the otherwise fairly equivalent iPad Air 3rd generation was upgraded from the A12 to A14 just last September and picked up the iPad Pro-like design, iPad Mini stayed exactly as it was. A12 powered at $399, even as the 8th gen iPad Air at 10.2 inches picked up the same processor while keeping the $329 price tag. Very confusing. Now, there has been talk of the 7.9-inch display getting an upgrade to somewhere in the 8.5-inch range, along with getting a design overhaul in line with the latest iPad Air and iPads Pro. If that's the case, it may have originally been intended to launch with the iPad Air 4 in September, but with production delays keeping it back to early 2021, and with that design I'd expect it also to come with the A14 SoC too. Along with that design language, it would also most likely get the Touch ID sleep wake button too, just like the iPad Air. Of course, it could be that Apple are trying to realign the iPad Mini with the base iPad as simply a smaller option, just as iPhone 12 mini is to iPhone 12, in which case I'd expect it to also launch with an A13 SoC, which could help simplify the range. So I guess what I'm saying here is there might be a new iPad Mini. Probably will be. Or not. But probably. And that's probably a good thing. But either way, if it's coming, we expect it around March. iPad Air. Finally, moving on to September, I think we'll be seeing an A15 powered iPad Air coming alongside the iPhone 13, as that could well be its new release slot in years going forward. Getting the power of the latest iPhones in an iPad will always be a great experience. Once the A14X arrives with the new iPad Pros, we shouldn't have what we have this year, where the iPad Air is almost leapfrogging the Pro, with the Pro still languishing with a 2018 A12 based chip, and yet still practically destroying all other competition outside of Apple. Beyond the chip upgrade, maybe we could see ProMotion coming to iPad Air 2. I don't think Apple worries too much about cannibalizing their own products as much as everyone thinks, and maybe even Face ID could come to the tablet too. If any cameras deserve an upgrade on the iPads, it's the selfie camera, as many of these are being used daily on Zoom, MS Meetings, FaceTime, and so many other great apps. So give us a good one. Nobody uses that back camera regularly on their iPad. And Apple Pencil. I couldn't leave the iPad without talking about one of the best accessories, Apple Pencil. Now, with the second generation Apple Pencil, we went from, wait, I charge it how? To, yeah, that makes sense. And with its awesome magnetic charging mount, it also picked up the double tap to switch function, allowing you to switch from paint to erase with the double tap on the side. It's so smooth to use, and with Scribble this year it became even more useful, although it will be interesting to see how many people use this handwriting recognition system a lot of the time. I think that Apple should actually drop the original version in all honesty and move everyone over to the Apple Pencil 2. And where the iPad doesn't have the magnetic charge capability, then provide an optional pencil case that magnetically charges the pencil separately from the iPad itself, just like the AirPods case. Also, I'd love to see a third generation version with a camera built into the tip so that you can grab colours from your environment, a magazine, the paint on a wall, and use it to paint right into whatever app you're using. I mentioned this in the middle of 2020 and I still think it would be an awesome feature unique to the iPad. Apple Watch. Apple made big moves with the Apple Watch in 2020, adding blue and red aluminium colour options beyond their core 3 colours for aluminium sport watch models, adding new health features like blood oxygen saturation for the first time, and introducing the lower cost model directly instead of just keeping an older model at a lower price with the Apple Watch SE. Apple Fitness Plus was also launched, like only just, but they made it, which is Apple's play to keep you in the Apple Watch family by placing your workout statistics right on the big screen wherever you work out, whether that's on your iPhone, your iPad, or on Apple TV. So what's in store for Apple Watch in 2021? We're expecting Apple Watch Series 7 to arrive in September of 2021, most likely with a new design language in line with the 2020 iPhone 12 and 2018 iPad Pro look, with those flat sides, removing the curved edges of the display but keeping the rounded corners. The original Apple Watch design was largely unchanged visually from launch to Series 3, with Apple Watch Series 4 to Series 6 and the Apple Watch SE expanding the displays from 38 and 42 to 40 and 44mm sizes, pushing out to rounded corners and still being compatible with the existing Apple Watch straps. The design change for Apple Watch Series 7 that we're expecting will bring several benefits that should make 2021 a super cycle for the Apple Watch. First, the flush flat display will be far less susceptible to damage if it doesn't protrude above the frame, in line with the iPhone 12 design. It's unclear whether Apple would be able to bring their ceramic shield displays to the watch, or if it would even be required, as scratch resistance is probably more important to the display if it's being protected by the frame surrounding it. What would be a much bigger advance would be for Apple to bring their sapphire glass to the aluminium models, which currently just have the Ion X glass, and the scratch resistance is not as great on those displays. This is currently reserved for the premium material watches like stainless steel, titanium, and previously ceramic and gold. In terms of health features which have become the hallmark of Apple Watch, there is talk of blood pressure monitoring coming to Series 7, although it is thought that this may require a specific strap, which could signal that with the redesign, Apple may add a smart connector style interface within the watch strap attachment to enable this type of feature. Also, FaceTime, no. Please, please, please don't expect FaceTime cameras coming to Apple Watch unless Apple has some actual magic up their sleeves. That could only be a terrible experience. One possible thing that Apple could bring more on the software side is audio-only workouts for Apple Fitness Plus. Because sometimes, and especially for workouts like treadmill or rowing, you might not need to watch along, or especially if Apple starts adding outdoor runs or cycling, for example, you know, outdoors, when outdoors becomes a place that you can go again. I wouldn't expect the Apple Watch SE to get an update in 2021, except perhaps some new colorways, but I'd even find that surprising. With the S5 chip inside and its nice big display, it's going to be quite capable for another year as the entry-level model, although I doubt the Series 3 will stay around for another year. So I'd say that there's a decent chance that the SE might see a small price drop, maybe all the way down to where the Series 3 was. This would make all the sense in the world, as Series 3 has been missing a number of the software features like hand washing detection, reasonably nice looking faces. Sorry, but the ones on the smaller models look like absolute hot trash right now. And now that Apple wants you to share your faces online, let's just let everyone share. Apple Audio. 2020 was a big year for Apple on the audio front with the introduction of spatial audio for AirPods Pro, automatic device switching when you use different devices, the new HomePod Mini, and now AirPods Max. Almost universally, Apple's audio products have been praised for their sound quality, ease of use, but not necessarily the intelligence of Siri having much more limitation than the competition. But we're talking hardware right now, so what does Apple have in store for its audio products in 2021? AirPods are expected to get a third generation, most likely taking design cues from the AirPods Pro, but without the more advanced features like spatial audio and noise cancelling, but with the sealed bud fit and smaller stalks from the higher tier product. I would expect that these will be at the current price point of $159, but with the same wireless charging case that the Pros come with now, which would be a nice little value add. The audio quality is also a bit nicer by all accounts, although some people do prefer the fit of the regular AirPods, inherited from Johnny Ive's EarPods, introduced way back with the iPhone 5. These were a massive improvement over the previous iPod Buds that had become so iconic with their white wires. Speaking of Gen 1 and Gen 2 AirPods, I would love to see their design stick around in an AirPods SE version, with a wired charging case at $99. If Apple is really planning to completely remove the Lightning port from their iPhones, having a more accessibly priced AirPods option makes all the sense in the world. Apple also, of course, has their Beats line, and the Beats Flex is a pretty incredible value at $49, using the same wireless tech as AirPods, and are an amazing option if you just want to get into the wireless headphones market. AirPods Pro are also rumoured to get a design overhaul, possibly with the removal of the stalks, though this may make it difficult to get a good microphone performance as the beamforming mics are currently located here. There are a few substantial rumours about what else could change, though Apple has filed multiple patents regarding health data from ear-based wearables, including heart rate, use of accelerometer data, and more. So it could well be that you could go running with just your AirPods in, no Apple Watch, no iPhone in your pocket, and still get some good workout data. With AirPods Max only just joining the range in December 2020, there are a few thoughts on what a new generation could bring, though before their launch, the expectations were that these headphones would detect which way around they were being worn, which their very symmetrical design would suggest could well have been accurate. Touch controls were also expected to be a part of the design on the outside of the ear cups, which would also mean no physical controls. Without those there, they would look even more symmetrical, adding even more weight to the reversible argument, so these features could well appear in a version 2, along with replaceable headbands too. The main part of the headphone that is not protected by that case. But who knows if these are problems that Apple are even still working through. There are rumours of a more lightweight sports version of the over-ear headphones, which could be something else to look forward to from Apple, perhaps with a more affordable price tag and a little bit more sweat resistance. But it seems that AirPods Max are built more for luxury listening than training right now. Could it be that the sports version is actually a rebrand of the current Beats headphones, maybe with some slight redesigns on the inside? We don't know. I don't think that the Beats brand is going anywhere anytime soon, because I believe that anyone outside of the Apple ecosystem, anyone not using an iPhone, might still be more likely to buy a Beats headphone than an Apple branded one. But let me know in the comments what you think about that. On the HomePod side, we have HomePod and HomePod Mini right now. And I have a feeling that Apple is probably going to hold this range as it is for now, perhaps with some internal updates coming to the full-sized HomePod. It'd be great to see support come for more audio services, and also the U1 chip being added to the full-size HomePod so that the handoff feature in the HomePod minis would be able to function with those too. But it looks like 2021 is going to be a great year for Apple. There is so much excitement coming, and I haven't even touched on the Apple Silicon Macs that will be coming. I haven't touched on Apple TV, which is due an update, and there are more products too. So if you're interested in hearing about those products as well, please make sure that you subscribe to the channel, ring that bell, and hit the notifications so that you don't miss a thing. If you do decide to ring that bell, thank you so much. Make sure you let me know that you've done it in the comments, and I will thank you in a future video, as you'll be a member of our notification squad. We put out new videos every weekday at 12 UTC with the latest news, leaks, and Apple rumours as they appear, and I'd love to see you there. Thanks so much for watching, and let me know in the comments what you are most excited about from Apple in 2021.